Good morning and welcome to our online service. We welcome you to ponder with us, a time shared by members, friends, and visitors as a congregation of people in the spirit of First Parish of Sudbury, Unitarian Universalists. We gather this morning to find meaning, to participate in community, and maybe to find some small way to help make our communities and our lives a little bit better. This morning we gather in love with open hearts and minds, endeavoring to create a time and a space where all are welcome to bring their whole self, respective beliefs, identities, gladness, and sorrows. I ask you to leave nothing about yourself behind this morning. We love and welcome you just as you are. Friends, there's a button available right below this window. If you click on it, you will receive this morning's order of worship. Please open it to follow along. Our opening reading this morning is actually a blessing for risk takers and those who have on occasion maybe fallen or failed. So let us begin. Today we share in a blessing for losers, risk takers, all failures far and wide. Blessed are they who fall in the mud, who jump with gusto and rip the pants, who skin the elbows, bruise the ego, for they shall know the sweetness of risk. Blessed are they who make giant mistakes, whose intentions are good but impact has injured, who know the hot sense of regret and ask for mercy, for their hearts will know the gift of forgiveness. Blessed are they who have seen a D or an F or a C or any letter less than perfect, who are painfully familiar with the red pen and the labels as less than, for they know the wisdom in the imperfect. Blessed are they who try again, who dust off, who wash up, who extend the wish for peace, who return to sites of failure, who are dogged in their pursuit, for they will discover the secret to dreams. Blessed are they who refuse to listen to the naysayers, for their hearts will be houses for hope. Blessed are they who see beyond the surface of another, for they will be able to delight in the gift of compassion. Blessed are they who stop running the race to help a fellow traveler, who pick up the fallen, who stop for injured life, for they shall know the kindness of strangers. Blessed are they who boldly abandon winning, for they shall know the path of justice. Please join me in saying our Unison Chalice lighting, which is located in that order of worship that you opened up, right? A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people, faith that demands the living out of goodness, faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is a symbol of the spark of all this within each of us. Please join me in enjoying our hymn, Will the Circle Be Unbroken by Southern Rail.
I was standing by my window on one cold and cloudy day when I saw that earth come rolling for to carry my mother away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Well, I told that undertaker, please drive slow, for the body you are hauling, Lord, I hate to see her go. Will the circle be unbroken unbroken. By and by, Lord, by and by, there's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Well, I followed close behind her, tried to hold up and be brave, but I could not hide my sorrow when they laid her in her grave. Will the circle be unbroken? By and by, Lord, by and by, there's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. I went home, Lord, my home was lonely. Missed my mother, she was gone. All my brothers and sisters crying, what a home so sad and lone. Will the circle be unbroken? By and by, Lord, by and by, there's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.
Our reading this morning is from the Historical Dictionary of Unitarian Universalism, and yes, there is such a thing. It's wonderful. It's full of all the questions you ever had to ask about Unitarian Universalism. It's compiled by the Reverend Mark Harris. The selection I'll read to you is entitled Ultra Universalism. This term was coined by the Reverend Aidan Ballou, trained as a Unitarian minister who later converted to Universalism. He founded the utopian community of Hopedale and was a believer of restorationism, which amounted to the ideal that there would be a period of suffering for sin after death, where the soul would be purified through suffering and thus brought into harmony with God. Aidan used the term ultra-universalism to describe his opponents in the restorationist controversy that rocked the Universalists in the 1820s and 1830s. Ultra-Universalists were those who denied any punishment whatsoever after death, but instead believed in immediate salvation for all. In the early phases of the controversy, their opponents called them leatherheads. Another term applied to this belief was death and glory Universalists. Although the controversy died out after 1841, when the Restorationists Association disbanded, the majority of Universalists seem to have subscribed to the Restorationist view by 1870. Ultra-Universalism was the belief of the great Universalist leader, Reverend Hosea Ballou, also known as Father Ballou, who remained committed to the position that people suffer for their sins in earthly life. He rejected the ideal of individual moral rewards for behavior and advocated a corporate view of salvation. Now that's an interesting perspective. Hold that thought and let us enjoy our musical interlude. This morning, after a lot of sleepless nights, I feel called to discuss what happens after this life, without firm certainty about the mystery of it all. So don't expect answers. My desire to do this is directly connected to the reality of 28 million cases of COVID out of 331 million people in this country, and 496,000, soon to be 500,000 deaths from coronavirus alone. That does not count the many deaths that happen because of other causes. We have wondered why this is happening, and we can place blame. But maybe you're like me, and instead, our minds are drawn to the difficult reality of death. After all, life is a terminal condition. Death is a topic that none of us wants to talk about. But right now, no matter how much we might want to distract ourselves, death is front and center, each and every single day, holding us literally captive for good reason. I seek wisdom with which to bolster us. I search through the theology and mythology of the world's religions, read more philosophy about courage, and review historic accounts of plagues, none that have so ravaged the world. What I have read feels like it's not equipped to provide solace at this level, at this scale. I endeavor to elaborate in a meaning-filled way and invite us to look through the mirror dimly, to see what we might find within the mystery. In some ways, I am at a loss, and in others, what I offer you might seem frivolous. I do not ask you to agree with me this morning about how meaning can be found in facing a pandemic and the resulting carnage. And carnage it is. I just present one's view, my own, in order to reflect on the events and how ill-equipped we Unitarian Universalists might be to deal with it all. My opening question this morning is a simple one. Are we comfortable with the reality of death? Because honestly, this is the place, our spiritual home, where religion might reside to engage in these big questions and expect some sense of solace in return. We have known and are working through our share of grief and heartbreak at the loss of loved ones, friends, and strangers. We all grieve. Piece of insight I invite us to embrace this morning is that death is not the opposite of life, but it is a part of it. The hardest part about death is that it is truly the great unknown. Friends, let's break the illusion. This experience that we are living is really, truly all the great unknown. There is no certainty, even though we endeavor to create the illusion of certainty through scheduling and plans and thinking about the future. We are a hopeful species. I ask us what lies beyond the veil of life. We like to plan so much this morning, I thought that I might open the topic of what we might expect in death. I like to think of that great crossing over as entering into the good place. It fits with our hopeful nature. This morning, I'm looking at the constructs of heaven, limbo, and hell, and what we believe as Unitarian Universalists. Each religion has their own thoughts on the matter. Many people in the same religion disagree about the tenets, regardless of whether one is a Jew, Hindu, Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, humanist, pagan, and or so on. The theology, myth, and story may not suffice to instill courage and peace in the face of a pandemic or any illness with a fatal prognosis. Where can we find solace? As Unitarian Universalists, we walk much of the time on a singular journey. I encourage us to take time to faithfully look into the question of what comes afterward and decide what the best story, the best theology, the best myth is for each one of us to embrace, to help us to cultivate meaning and courage. Do you need the construct of a heaven? Or do we need a hell to send the bad people to, or a hell to keep them in check? As Unitarian Universalists, we are very unlike other religious believers. This decision of what we believe about the afterlife is up to each one of us to sort out. There is no creed or doctrine to inform us on this matter. We are informed by our experiences, our education, the news, family, friends, and those whom we admire. We expand and support our knowledge by continued research in the fields of science, current events, personal insight, and the artful meanderings of modern-day pundits, historians, and the like. Near-death experiences, or NDEs, have provided many with insight about what happens when one passes through the veil separating life and death. But are those just experiences of an oxygen-starved brain? There is much conjecture, but no certainty. Many believe it is a waste of time to even study the possibilities. Mystics, each different from another, believe that there are other means of communicating with the entities from the other side, rely on asking those entities to answer important questions, make connections. Anything is possible in an uncertain world. I rely on all of the incoming data, and am open to learning what methods could unlock answers, and do not pretend that I know with certainty when I do not. I am engaged in ever-evolving my understanding of life, love, theology, vaccine availability, death, and taxes. It's such a heavy topic. I hope that you will tolerate my little moments of levity. Death and taxes. Death and taxes. It is then, when I am lying awake in the middle of the night, wondering, struggling about life, that I think back to those places that have brought me peace. I think about preteen discussions with my mother, usually under the cover of darkness, my father away on some trip somewhere. We would talk for hours about the intriguing, important, and quietly whispered topics of life and death. One such topic was what she called the spark of light, or life, that we carry within us. My mother explained to me what she called the soul, and how it animates, challenges, inspires, and makes us who we are. She believed that God, her definition of God anyway, placed that spark of light in a lamp within us, and if we tended it well, it might become a tiny flame or a mighty blaze. The more carefully it was cared for, the more that it caught fire, the more we glowed from within. She explained that this internal spark made us beautiful, not only on the outside, but on the inside as well. My mother believed that the divinity of all, and she shared that I needed to protect that spark as much as I was able, because it could be smothered out or encouraged by others as I allowed it to be. The theology that encompasses that small spark has evolved over my lifetime. I may still call it soul at times, or small still voice. I may call it conscience, or mortal coil, or mind, spirit, and so on. I believe wholeheartedly that as long as that spark within glows, we have the potentiality to catch fire in a very good way, inspired to live out this life to its fullest, walking the good road, filled with love, courage, and the commitment to justice and compassion. This little nugget of theology that my mother blessed me with has gotten me all this way in my life, even into ministry, questioning everything that exists along the way, challenging it, all to my theological litmus test. Am I certain about the validity of this preteen theology without a doubt? No, of course not. I am fully agnostic. Hear me roar. But when I struggle and review all of the knowledge, experiences, and conjecture out there in the world through the lens of my life, my mother's theology, somewhat evolved, has stood up to the test of time. And I believe that it is as plausible as any other belief system out there. What I've realized is that our personal theologies are made up of these little nuggets, or gems, if you will, that we have acquired along the way and hold on to in either the recesses or sometimes the forefront of our brains. At times, say during a sleepless night, we pull them out and rub them like a worry stone. We scrutinize them or shine them up, remembering and maybe allowing them on occasion to bring us comfort. What are your gems? Do you remember them? Do you hold them close? I have faced death along the way, and at one point, a story about faith. I had a colleague way back in the beginning of my career in software who was born-again Christian. We were talking one day about death. One of our colleagues had been severely injured in a boating accident. I shared how I was worried that our friend might die. My colleague looked at me so strangely and said matter-of-factly, "I feel sorry for you and your lack of faith." He went on to say that if you knew God and had faith in your life, you would not be afraid. You would have no fear because you would know that God has it all in hand. I will admit I was taken completely off guard because I never thought that someone who believed in God so much wouldn't have an innate sense of fear in the face of death. I didn't realize that it was my lack of evangelical faith that left me, in my friend's opinion, vulnerable. My colleague explained to me that the worst case scenario for our friend was to go to the promised land, and how could that be bad? That type of unwavering faith just never occurred to me, and that was a lesson in itself. Could I have that level of faith in something or someone in the face of such constant uncertainty? Is the belief that this is all in God's plan enough? For me, not so much. Years later, while attending seminary and working at the Unitarian Universalists Association, also known as the UUA, I found another theological gem framed and hung on the wall of the president's office. The Reverend William Sinkford, a once avowed atheist in his early years, before life truly tested him, was inspired in his own ministry by a quote attributed to John Murray. Murray, considered one of the forefathers of Universalism, was believed to have said, "Give them not hell, but hope and courage." You are the them that Murray was referring to. I would later read in a textbook that same quote in its entirety. It has been unfurled by writer after writer, passed down through history as we might imagine a game of telephone in the following incarnation. The so-called time spirit said to John Murray, "Go out into the highways and byways of America, your new country. You may possess only a small light, but uncover it. Let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and minds of men and women. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Do not push them deeper into their theological despair, but preach the kindness and everlasting love of God." God, Goddess, universal energy, however you might envision it, was the entity that bestowed the light. Uncover your light, let it shine, use it in order to bring more light. John Murray's words commingled with my mother's spark of life theology. That brought me deeper into Unitarian Universalism. The Universalists believed and espoused that God was too good to damn his/her beloved creation. Therefore, hell and damnation were not plausible notions for humanity. There was only a good place, or heaven. And if some of us needed to suffer a bit, maybe the inclusion of a purgatory, a waiting place for those who had fallen among us and were not ready for primetime heaven. But their sentence was self-imposed and only for a short time. This is Reconstructionist Universalism that Aidan Ballou had proposed, and which was explained in this morning's reading. His uncle, Hosea Ballou, another forefather who worked alongside and sometimes opposed John Murray, believed that there was no need for suffering in order to get to heaven. Regardless of what one did or how they behaved, we are all saved regardless. This was and is the good news of Unitarian Universalism, a good place guaranteed for all. It is an unusual theology and one that brought relief and joy to so many. Most of the world's religions do not espouse to such a generous view into the afterlife. Throughout my journey, I have worked hard to refine my understanding of my spiritual underpinnings. I'm nowhere near a full realization yet. It is like the writing of a dissertation that will require a lifetime to complete. I have wondered over and over where I might find myself at the end of my days. Early on, I was certain that it would be hell. Later, I hoped for heaven. At times, I doubted any tangible outcome. Maybe you've wondered as well. Where do we go? And do we go anywhere? And there's no certainty. There's no way to be certain. Personally, I chose to let go of hell when I found Unitarian Universalism. It was a good thing to set down. Regardless of the fact that I strayed from my parents' religion, I wandered along the road of various spiritual beliefs. I chose a love that was not conventional and read everything with regard to comparative religions. Some would consider my curiosity and search sacrilegious. But I was looking for a similar core, the hub of the wheel of faith, that I imagined existed where similarities were the common ground in truth. The key to the good place that I found is, as I shared in last week's sermon, to be a good person, to be kind, to be compassionate, to harm none. The real truth about life and death is that it is a mystery that we cannot know. And boy, is that frustrating. It should be the work and calling of religion and the clergy to be open about this part of life, to talk about a topic that is difficult, elusive, and hard to name, to offer mythology that will give one faith, hope, courage. Death has been unknowable to us, and throughout history, religious leaders, clergy, have kind of taken advantage of people's fears, taken advantage of adherents of different faiths, taken advantage and persecuted unbelievers as well. They have hell like a big stick to keep people in line and generous. In most of the world's religions, it is believed that there is only one true way, one true God. And yet in others, there are many gods and many ways. Our world has become smaller, and our beliefs now overlap and intermingle. Could there ever be just one truth? I think not. And that is why I am a Unitarian Universalist, because I have the freedom to wander and wonder without penance, without distraction. As you use, we are encouraged by science and scholars to let go of faith and to believe in facts. And yet I would caution us not to let go of the insight that mythology can offer. It is never one way or the other. There is so much in between that could be valuable to us. And it begins with a question. Plain and simple. The decision is ours to make. Where will we turn in the end? I would encourage us to start thinking about the answers to this question sooner rather than later. This morning, here is what I offer. Do not be afraid to believe in a mythology that will bring you hope and courage when facing the end of this one that we know of, precious life. We are visionaries and planners, so dare to go there. Who cares if your mythology of hope is far-flung and unproven? It's meant to comfort you, and only you. I give you permission to believe in any mythology that you might resonate with, to create your own story if you cannot find one that works. Here are the couple that I have contemplated and will share with you. I like the idea of a Viking funeral. It resonates with me. It makes me feel strong and committed. The Norse people's mythology is all about Valhalla, described as a majestic, enormous hall located in Asgard, ruled over by the god Odin. Chosen by Odin, half of those who die in combat travel to Valhalla upon death, led by the Valkyries, while the other half go to the goddess Freya's field, Folkvang. In Valhalla, the dead warriors join the masses of those who have died in combat and various legendary Germanic heroes and kings as they prepare to aid Odin during the events of Ragnarok, which is comprised of a great battle, flooding of the earth and resurfacing and repopulation by 2 human survivors to begin it all again. I like the power and the pageantry of Valhalla, but I fall short on the war part. Peace sounds much better. The real draw, though, is the magnificent parties and endless food and mead in Valhalla. No calories is a real plus. Buddhism, on the other hand, offers another option. First, imagine the reincarnation of 10,000 lifetimes that it takes to escape samsara, the cycle of suffering between birth and death. If you like the thought of reincarnation, this may just be for you. To escape samsara, one must become enlightened, and the place that one goes is called Nirvana. Nirvana has commonly been interpreted as the extinction of the 3 fires, or the 3 poisons: greed, aversion, and ignorance. Once nirvana is achieved and the enlightened individual physically dies, Buddhists believe that they will no longer be reborn. Personally, as a Buddhist, I think that being born, suffering, and dying for 10,000 lifetimes seems a bit over the top. Then there are those dedicated souls, the bodhisattvas, who choose to selflessly reincarnate to help others to transcend that cycle of rebirth and death. I kind of culminate a bunch of different thoughts into what I'm working on. I, of course, have my own thoughts of what I call the good place that I'm currently working on. It is based on a story that is a bit more familiar to me from my childhood conversations, where family and friends have sorted out their struggles and have passed on and live in peace, experience the afterlife of their dreams. If they love fishing, playing cards, and partying North style on occasion, then that is what they're able to do. I believe that what we imagine heaven to be like here in this reality that we endeavor to create in this reality will be realized in its entirety when we pass to the other side. If you have ever seen the movie What Dreams May Come, it stars Robin Williams. It's a great movie. It feeds into a positive notion of this end-of-life narrative. It kind of takes away the scariness a little bit. If you haven't seen it and want a feel-good movie, remember that it was made in the 80s. During times such as these, a pandemic, about what the good place could look like, I recommend it highly. As we live into this life fully, it is important for us to also embrace and prepare for what will inevitably arrive one day, whether it is the loss of a loved one and our feelings of grief and impending mortality, or our time to travel to the other side. It is a hard destiny to march bravely forward towards, and yet the moment will arrive where we will have to let go of this mortal coil, and it will take courage, faith, everything that we believe in to let go. It is well known in hospice that patients who are close to dying will most likely have a visitation from a family member who has passed on, usually a mother, father, sibling, or even a pet. Dr. Kerr, author of the book Death is But a Dream, explains that he does not practice religion, but considered the frequency and realism of positive experiences by dying patients in connecting with those who died before them. It's hard to walk away from this and not be more inspired and hopeful of both life and death. I guess it feels as though there's something of having lived that goes on. Personally, I look forward to seeing all of my loved ones on the other side. That is what keeps me hopeful as I read about all those who have died over the last year, imagining them reuniting and no longer suffering. It makes the uncertainty of the mystery a little less daunting. I encourage us wholeheartedly to find that place of courage, to dare to look into that mirror dimly, to possibly catch a glimpse of what waits for us. In the meantime, as we live into this life fully, and I encourage us to do so, we have an opportunity to envision and create the good place right here and right now on this planet Earth, with one another, during this most uncertain of times. So I encourage us wholeheartedly to not waste a moment. I invite us to enter into some time of silent reflection, meditation, and prayer. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
Oh Lord, I'm standing here before you. Though I know there are many more in line. Some are brave, strong, and tall. Oh Lord, I feel so small. I'm a little man. Don't forget me by and by. tend my corn and beans. I'm a little man. Don't forget me by and by. And when this weary world is ended, and I'm called to stand before your golden throne, all the little deeds I've done will shine brightly as the sun. Just a little man, not forgotten by and by. Just a little man, not forgotten by and by.
Thank you so much for your continued support. Let us extinguish our chalice lighting. Please join me. It's located in your order of worship. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Good and loving people, our time in worship has come to an end. So I bid you to go in peace, speak your truth in love, and give thanks each and every day. I offer these words shared by the Reverend William Singford. There is so much work to do. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history, find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
Now the holy men say the world's in decay, there's moral depression at hand. Maybe I'm as depressed as all of the rest, but I'm doing the best that I can. They're preaching repentance, passing down sentence before my defense can reply. And I'm struck from the list of the ones who are blessed with a ticket to heaven on high. I'm a hobo on a freight train to heaven. I ain't got a ticket, I'm just stealing a ride. I'm not welcome aboard the train to the Lord, but I bet he'll be glad that I dog dare you to show me just where the proof is that I've gone astray. All the wild oats I've sown and the women I've known, I've loved in the most heavenly way. I've harbored affection for the wondrous selection of the things of which I'm not ashamed. So when Gabriel cuts loose, I'll just hop that caboose and ride that glory-bound train. I'm a hobo on a freight train to heaven. I ain't got a ticket, I'm just stealing a ride. I'm not welcome aboard the train to the Lord, but I bet he'll be glad that I tried. I'm a hobo on a freight train to heaven. I ain't got a ticket, I'm just stealing a ride. I'm not welcome aboard the train to the Lord, but I bet he'll be glad that I tried. I'm not welcome